I want to show you how to do an extract question for an English Literature GCSE paper. Now you'll have 3 extract questions to do over the 2 papers, one on heroes, one on online inspector calls, and one on of mice and men. And so mice and men I'm going to look at. Here's an extract question. So when you get an extract, you'll be given about this much, about a page. It'll usually be a very easily recognizable part of the text because they want to test you on important parts of it. Obviously, in doing this, you can use your prior knowledge of the characters in the book, but the best approach for extract questions is to go slowly through them from start to finish, highlighting the bits that answer the question. Now, here's a golden rule. Do not just tell the story again. There will be a specific question, just one question. Here's the one here on the top. What do we learn about George and Lenny's in this extract? So quite a straightforward question. What do you learn about George? What do you learn about Lenny? Don't tell me what happens in the extract, because that's not the question. The question is, what do we learn about George and what do we learn about Lenny? So I'm going to firstly highlight going all the way through. Now, seeing that this question's about George and Lenny, I've got a decision to make now. Am I going to answer it in the whole? Am I going to just go from start to finish? So if the first thing we learned about George, I write about George, and the next thing about Lenny, I write about Lenny. That's okay. It's absolutely fine to just go through from start to finish and explain all the bits that answer the question. Or am I going to split this into 2 bits, find all my George stuff, find all my Lenny stuff, and then write half an essay about George and then the second half about Lenny? I'm going to do that because it's a little more fiddly. But again, it's an approach that looks very good when you get it right, because it shows you've organised your answer well. I think for this sort of thing, it's quite straightforward either way. You highlight the bits that answer the question, and because it's in 2 parts, I'm going to use 2 different highlighter colours. So I'll use yellow for Lenny, and I don't know, some other colour for George. I'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Let's have a read through them. So, in a moment, Lenny came crashing back through the brush. Right, straight away, Lenny comes crashing through. So I'm going to highlight the word crashing, because I think that is showing me that he is... wild is the word coming into my head. I'm not sure that's the right word, really. But he's physical. Okay, so, all right. My first thing, came crashing back through the bush. He carried one small willow stick in his hand. George sat up. All right, he said brusquely. Give me that mouse. Okay, I'm going to select that bit. Right, let's see. What colour shall we have? Let's have green for George. He's a Plymouth fan after all. He's not a Plymouth fan. Don't put that in your exam. So he says brusquely. So he's bossy. And that exclamation mark as well. So the way I'm looking at that is that he's the boss. He gives orders. Okay. Lenny made an elaborate pantomime of innocence. Oh, okay, back to Lenny then. Right, so Lenny, elaborate pantomime of innocence. I'm going to note down they might be childlike, but he's not stupid. Yeah, he can speak crafty. What mouse, George? I ain't got no mouse. George held out his hand. Come on, give it to me. You ain't putting nothing over. So you see what I'm doing here? I'm highlighting bits. I'm making notes. That's to help me remember the points I'm trying to make. They don't have to be full sentences like the ones I'm writing. They can be quite quick. Or even if you think this is obvious, you don't have to make a note. But this is what the process. You go from the start, and I'm going to do it all the way through if I'm going to do it in an exam. What about, if I could just pick out a little obvious one here. If I go back to Lenny mode, a bit further down here, George's hand, this is this section here. George's hand remained outstretched imperiously, slowly, like a terrier who doesn't want to bring a ball to its master. Lenny approached. You know why I've picked that bit out, don't you? Because it's that old animal comparison with Lenny. Yeah? So he's like a terrier who doesn't want to return the ball to its master. And that tells us quite a bit about Lenny, animal-like, and it also tells us something about George, doesn't it? The master. Okay, so now I've done that. Let's imagine I've done that for the entire text. Then it's time to put my answer together. Like I said, it's absolutely fine to just go in order, write about the one about crashing back, then write about the brusquely bit, then write and the exclamation mark. It's fine to do that and mix the two up. Or you could do it first one character, then the other. I'm going to do for George, say. Now here is where peeing comes into it. So you are going to pee all the time. So you make a point, give evidence to support that point, and then you explain how the evidence and the point answer the question. So remember the question, what do we learn about George and Lenny in this extract? Okay, let me pick out then this animal comparison. And maybe I'll write about it in the context of what it tells us about George. So my point is going to be, that George is shown to be the leader. How am I backing that up? I'll give you a bit of evidence. He is referred to as the, quote, master. And then I'll give my explanation. This is a strong word to use to describe a human relationship, suggesting slavery, you could say, couldn't you? Because, you know, masters own slaves, suggesting slavery, or that Lenny is like a pet. I reckon that's decent, that. If I could just illustrate how the P has worked, a sentence I don't get to say every day. My point, I'm going to mark in blue. Oops, a daisy, beg your pardon. Modern technology, it'll never catch on. My point, P, George is shown to be the leader. My evidence, I'll do it in pink. He is referred to as the master. And then my explanation of that, let's go back to green. This is a strong word to use to describe a human relationship, suggesting slavery at Lenny is like a pet. So you see how I've done that? And that answers the question. What do we learn about George and Lenny? Well, that tells us something about George and indirectly about Lenny. And if you keep doing that a number of times throughout the text, you will get a good grade. End of. You can see how much in that first paragraph that I found. And if you keep doing that all the way through, you'll have lots and lots and lots of points to make. You develop it. Develop those ideas. Each idea is a P. You're even for at least a side of paper in your exam, an A4 page of paper. And that is how you do extract questions. They're not that bad, are they?